Throughout history, victory's been decided by what's going on down here on the surface of the Earth. Britain, for example, in the 19th century came to dominate the globe by controlling the world's oceans. But from the First World War onwards, warfare took to the skies, and now controlling the air is a key part of military strategy. And all that began with those brave pioneer aviators of the First World War.
In 1909, Blair EO set off on a flight that would make history. His aim was to win a prize of £1,000 for the first plane to cross the English Channel. It wasn't the most elegant of flights and ended in a rather rough landing. But he'd made it.
The plane he flew was a Blair EO11, like this one here. It's amazing it got that far. It looks so flimsy. Even more remarkably, this one still flies. Not exactly Top Gun. When the war started 5 years later, planes like this were still in production, and a few visionaries thought these might have a military application. With that, the first major air war had begun. At first, planes like this were reconnaissance vehicles. They were having a look at what was going on behind enemy lines and reporting back. But gradually they started actually taking an active role on the battlefield. Pilots were issued with these nasty-looking things, flechettes, spikes that if you drop out the side might hit enemy troops, or even bombs.
Planes were now an important weapon of war.
You gotta be kidding. There's no way I'd go up in this thing. This might have been the future, but it's pretty primitive. In fact, I feel like I'm sitting in a wicker garden chair surrounded by a sea of canvas. To steer it, you just move this column, and it's connected by a very flimsy-looking set of wires to the wings themselves, not little flappy bits like modern aircraft. The whole wings move, they twist. It's a system called wing warping. The engine is underpowered and prone to overheating. It can only fly at 47 miles per hour. It can only go at about 3,000 feet, no more. And as for the instrument panel, you get one dial, your oil pressure. That's it. Ooh.
But as planes went into service in World War I, the pressure was on to improve the technology. Soon there was an arms race that pushed aircraft development at an astonishing rate.
The pace of innovation in those years was like nothing seen before or since. Just a few years into the war, they had planes like that. Is that cool? What makes this aircraft so distinctive are the three sets of wings. Now they're designed to give that aircraft the necessary lift, but make the wings narrower so the pilot can see more of what's going on the ground. It also made the plane very, very manoeuvrable. There's an old story that the first ever test pilot amazed onlookers by doing 3 consecutive loop-the-loops. That plane can fly 117 miles an hour. That's 2.5 times as fast as the Blair EO, and it can fly 7 times higher. Such was the pace of innovation that some planes that were cutting edge could be obsolete just a few months later.
But innovation wasn't just changing how these planes flew, it was changing how they fought. It's said that at the very start of the war, when enemy planes passed each other, they'd give a friendly wave. That didn't last, and the age of air-to-air combat was born. At first, it was just the pilots taking pot shots with a pistol. but the next generation of aircraft would have guns as part of their design.
It soon became clear that the most effective way for the weapon to point was in the direction that the aircraft is travelling. Big problem there, though, of course, is you end up shooting your own propeller off, which is a bit of a disaster. The first solution they tried was to mount a machine gun on top of the wing, on top of the propeller. The trouble with that was that the pilot basically had to sort of stand up in his seat, release his strap, stand up here, and replace the magazine when it ran out of bullets. Completely unworkable, really. This SE5 had a system whereby the gun could slide back down to be reloaded and then slide up into its firing position. Still very cumbersome, though. The Germans soon came up with an even better solution, and it was quickly copied by the Brits. To show you how it works, I'm going to need to slow this down. They connected the machine gun to the crankshaft of the propeller with a series of cam plates, and that meant the machine gun only fired when these propeller's blades weren't in the way. It was a very precise bit of engineering. Get it wrong, you blow your own propeller off. The amazing thing about the First World War is that by the end of it, pretty much every significant part of aerial warfare was already in development. Planes were being used for reconnaissance, for communications, for dropping supplies, for dropping bombs, and for air-to-air combat.